G'day, welcome to this episode. It's been a couple of weeks since the last one, so once again, things got away from me renovating the house, but I've finally got some time and I'm going to tackle the bonnet and get that stripped back and epoxied, and I'm going to start the body fillers. So without further ado, let's get into it and get this thing done. I've still got a few little odds and ends to do other than that, but I'm just going to focus on getting the bonnet done. And I really want to sink my teeth into the body filler. I've been doing some plastering in the house, and I think I'm ready to apply those skills to the body of this ute. So anyway, let's get this thing sorted before the coronavirus gets us all. So as I mentioned on the last episode, I stored this bonnet. All right, so here is the. I've got a couple of bonnets actually. One is the original. As I mentioned, it's got some slight bit of surface rust on it, but that thing's been sitting there for over a year. And it's still pretty much bare metal, so thank you Central Victoria for the dry climate. And then the one behind it I bought because I didn't think this was... So originally this ute, I mentioned it had some hail damage, which was obviously the reason it was sort of, cheap when I bought it. $4,000 I paid for it with a 308. But admittedly, that was about 6 years ago. But I think you'd struggle to find one with a 305 litre in it now for that, especially in the nick that it was. It wasn't that bad, but looked all right. But as you know, once I took the paint off, it was shit. But it didn't have any rust holes coming through at the time. Anyway, so I bought another bonnet. Which you remember me getting, and this is it, the HZ, and it turned out to be shit because it was just had dints everywhere. It was just a bodgy repair. It had more bog than metal. Anyway, so I'll probably do a practice spray on that eventually once I get everything sealed up, and probably sell it and repair it properly this time. But this is the bonnet. It's been stripped on the top. Just have to wire wheel the rear of it. So I'll get it down and we'll have a proper look at it. So we've got her on the bench, and it is a thing of beauty, the old WB bonnet, and well, the H series bonnets at least anyway, or any old school Holden, to be honest. But I just like the shape of these ones. Yeah, there's something about it. I mean, it's a sort of an 80s style in general, but there's something about these bonnets that I really like. That nice tapered, sharp edge there, fading out to a sort of a sharpish edge on the and a point on the front, and it's got a slight curve. It's quite a complicated mould, really. A lot of angles and things going left, right, and centre. So as you can see, it does have some surface rust on it, but nothing too bad, and certainly nothing that won't come off with the burnishing wheel. Now I'll turn it over and I'll show you the other side that is yet to be sanded. And here's the underneath. So as far as this bonnet, you would last time you would have seen this bonnet, if you've been following the whole series, was one of the early episodes, 3 or 4 I think, where I got into it. I went through the other bonnet that I'd bought, which is the HZ bonnet, and that was going to replace this because I thought that the hail damage was going to be too bad to fix. As you know, the HZ bonnet didn't turn out good at all, so I've reverted back to this one. Since I've taken back the paint on the front of it, I did have a look with some light on the side, and I couldn't see any hail damage. So, and I think that obviously with body filler and with the high fill and primer, those tiny little undulations will be ironed out anyway. So this bonnet is good to go, and you can see underneath the paint's still very good on this. It is dirty; it needs a clean. I have given it a bit of a degrease, but it needs more of it. So seeing this has got a really good coverage on it, there's absolutely no need to take it back to bare metal, so I'm just going to scuff it up and epoxy over that. Probably could get away with not even running an epoxy on it, but sanding it up and getting it ready to do the base coat. But I think just for the sake of keeping everything even, I'll run some epoxy over it and get that dirt and paint back as much as possible. As you can see, it's quite a fiddly mould, so you wouldn't really want to be getting it back to bare metal anyway unless you're sandblasting it. And even then, I've heard reports of sandblasting warping these bonnets because of they're quite fragile when you've got large spaces of metal like that. So anyway, and also then you've got a lot of sand gets caught in these nooks and crannies and turns out to be a bit of a nightmare. So happy to run the burnishing wheel over that. And that will be the bonnet ready for, after a rust treatment from both sides, that'll be the bonnet ready to epoxy. So let's get it going. All right, so that's it's finally stripped. It's the next day now. It's actually cold, so I'm finally get back into the old hoodie again. I've missed it. So yeah, you can see I've just taken it back to that undercoat. It's blowing through to a couple of areas in bare metal, but that's as far as I'm going to take it because yeah, I don't need to take it any further. Epoxy is supposed to be applied directly to bare metal, but look, that's scuffed up enough with that wire wheel that it'll be fine. So I'll just give you a quick look. As you can see, I've just taken it back to the areas that I need. And no more. So that wire wheel that I've got hidden over there, I've showed you before, the burnishing tool is really good to get into those little crevices and the areas that are hard to get to with an angle grinder and just a flap disc. So you can get it with a drill bit as well with those little wire wheels, but I find that that's incredibly slow and this burnishing machine just rips through it. So although this could be, to do it properly, you'd want to take it back to bare metal, all this kind of stuff, but I just want to speed along this build at the moment, and that will suffice for me. As I said, you'll never see it. It's going to be under the car and copping the heat of the engine. So it may even pay to put some kind of Raptor liner under there as well at the end for a little bit of added protection. So now I'm moving on. I forgot about these, actually, the inner guards. So I've pulled them down from storage, and you can see quite filthy. A lot of holes in them from just over the years, people drilling wires and hoses and gas systems and all this kind of stuff. They're still there. They could really be welded up, and obviously the factory ones those two there may be factory. I'm not too sure. There's a little bit of, and that's where the guards bolt on there. So you can see, especially this one's got a little bit of rust on that inside, and that the guard rests over it, and you can see on the other one, when they painted it, they've literally just sprayed over the original, and the original colour was white. So yeah, so there you go. It's got a little bit of rust. Down here, there's a canister that sits on there. It's like a black plastic canister with a black tube coming out of it. Vacuum or something, I'm not too sure if anyone knows. Post a comment. And yeah, that's got a little drain valve there, so that was blocked, and as a result it has got some reasonably large pits there from rusting, but nothing that I'm going to worry about. I'll just treat it and be done with it. Once again, that'll be all wire-wheeled off. This one's got a lot of little annoying holes in it as well that'll have to be fixed up, or you could leave it, you know, but I'll fix it up because it'll look really bad once they're painted. Alright, so two guards, inner guards are washed and degreased to a certain extent at least, anyway, I didn't go berserk, and just gone around and taken all the clips out. I touched base on this a while ago in one of the episodes how I had a little labeler, but yeah, as soon as you take something off, make sure you take a photo of it, chuck it in a container. I've just written it with the text on this one because I ran out of labels, but yeah, these containers, you've all seen them at Bunnings or any hardware store, but you can also find the best place to get them is actually a $2 shop. Yeah, have plenty of them on hand so you can just store all this stuff away. As I also mentioned, you can get a lot of these replacement clips and things from Kingswood Country, but essentially it's just these little things here. So that holds the, you can screw on that and it slides on the side of the inner guard, and then you can screw the mud flaps and all that kind of stuff on. And these little like plastic plugs that go inside the guards, I think they're factory. I'm not too sure why they were there. Probably something to do with the manufacturing of that. They probably needed some holes. So there's probably about 6 of these, I think, on each guard. So once again, you could probably buy them new, but that's actually not too bad. So you could probably reuse that, Anyway, so now I'm going to grab the burnishing tool and do the same thing with these. Just wire it back, get it back to a pretty good level that I'm happy with, and then start having a look at the rust and welding up those little pinholes. Time lapse, they are now bare metal. I said I wasn't going to do it, but just couldn't help myself. So they're done, both sides. They're not completely bare metal. There's like little tiny little patches of primer still there, but yeah, I've done that on the rear of the tub and it didn't matter at all. So only one had tar on it underneath, so sound deadener. So I don't know what that's all about. But they just sort of back in the day, tarred what they wanted, or they tarred the driver's side. It doesn't make any sense to just do one. Maybe it was the left-hand side, passenger side being on the dirt. Could be a reason they tarred that. Only tarring one wheel as opposed to two could add up in saving costs over the course of manufacturing. I don't know, I could be totally wrong on that one, but only one of them had tar. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's as far as I'm going to take it. It's pretty fiddly to get all in there. And the outside too. Half of this you never see, but might as well do it properly. And I had to get out my secondary. I bought 2 of these back in the day when I was testing them, and always get 2 to find out. So yeah, that one lasted a good year. This one's a bit loose, but until I think one of the electrodes or something is gone on it, so you just need to replace that. But I whipped this one out, and with the combination of that wheel and this burnishing machine, it really does get the paint off really nicely. So, oh yeah, and I don't know if I've showed you this before, but this is the other one that I've used, and that's a really, really hard like polymer of string, and that's great for getting in little hard areas, and you get the majority of it off with this, and then you can use that to strip the rest. So now I'm just going to get the bonnet on the table and run the burnishing machine over the top just to get rid of that fine layer of rust. The other side's been done, as you know. That's not bare metal, but that's fine. Then I'll give them a prep wash, degrease. I'll rust treat them first, then a prep wash, and then get them in the booth. Ready for epoxy. And it's a never-ending supply of parts. I keep going up to the mezzanine level and finding parts that I've bloody forgotten about. And this is the spoiler underneath that goes, underneath the radiator grille. There's 2 sides, left and right. And so this also needs to be stripped back and epoxied, but I'm going to leave that. This and the nose cone will be the next episode. And I keep saying this, it's been a month since my last one, but I'm going to really attempt to try and get out 2 smaller ones during the next couple of weeks, just so that I can keep the momentum going, because I really want to get to this chassis. I've got something new and exciting to show you how to treat that chassis. And anyway, enough said. Get the bonnet on. We'll burnish that and we'll go from there. And there it is, burnished. I did speak to a spray painter the other day, and when he looked at some of the panels that I had, he did say he would be concerned if you didn't scuff it up a bit more for just so you can maximise your adhesion with your epoxy. So that's why I ran a burnishing machine over it with a coarser stripping discs and just lightly held it over, and it's given it a really nice, and then I crisscrossed it just to give it a nice hatch for the epoxy to adhere to even better. But also, and I mentioned that earlier, like that bonnet's been out for over a year and literally 5 minutes, and then look at it again. So, you know, I'm not saying you should just leave your parts in bare metal, but if you're in a dry climate, it's certainly not going to be a huge risk of doing any surface rust. It's going to be doing any damage if you can't get it to epoxy stage at, within a few months. Then yeah, just store it in a nice dry place with some sheets over it, and when it comes time, you will be able to just burnish it off and rust treat it, and it should be fine. If you live near the coast, obviously I wouldn't do that at all, so it's only inland. But yeah, it's as I said, it's a thing of beauty, this bonnet. It's such a nice design, and it's beautiful in bare metal. I'd really love to keep the car in bare metal and just clear it, but it's just not straight enough. So the colour is still up in the air, and that will be, obviously finalised down the track, but I'm definitely thinking a metallic, dark metallic, because you can't go wrong. It just looks so good with this panel. You need the shadow lines and things like that, and to really define it, and nothing does that better than metallic. So when I say metallic, I mean like a silver, dark silver colour. Tossing around a few ideas for that, and how you could best highlight those curves and lines in the car that'll come down the track. Anyway, I'm going to rust treat this now, and then put that over into the corner and get the inner guards up and do the same. So here we go. So I've got these two inner guards cleaned and prepped, ready for spraying. So these drill holes here. So from what I can see, these larger holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're all factory, as you can see over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's actually none up there. I'm assuming that they're factory. They're the ones that I got the plug holes out of. I reckon the others over here is just from people just going to town on the gas system. When it's on the inside of the guards, they'll be just drilling through to bolt on certain things for the gas system, and over the years, little things that fall off, and wiring and stuff. So if I leave them, they're going to stand out like dog's balls. So I'll probably just plug weld them. Plug weld the small ones in front of the guards here. It's a bit of a mess here as well, so really need to do it now before the epoxy, because it's just going to be harder. There's one there. So, and there's a couple here as well. Might as well do it properly. So I'll have to do that. It's going to slow me down, but yeah. So it's not, if you can't do it properly, don't do it. And that's the whole methodology with this whole build is just do it right the first time, and then you won't have to go back and stuff around. It'd be so much harder to then grind back the epoxy and do that later, even though I want to get this episode out. That's the way it is. So I'm going to grab the welder and fix that up and try not to blow myself off. So I'll move that off the bench. So plugged up those little holes on both guards, and now I'll just give it a final prep wash and get them in the booth and tie it up and figure out some kind of suspension system so that I can get access to both sides, and then we will mix up some epoxy and get them sprayed. Here we go. All right, that was a monstrous effort. Cleaned them all and got them in the booth. So just wanted to go into the booth and show you how I've organised these panels. So yeah, in the booth, and I'll just flick the camera around. All right, so that's one inner guard, and that's a clothes rack. It's just suspended on wheels. It's pretty handy actually if you can come across one of them. They're perfect for holding panels. Might tie it up on the bottom so it doesn't sway around. Got the bonnet over here. I couldn't think of the best way to do this, so I've just put it on an angle, and I've actually got a bit of cable, bit of wire from the top, and it's just sort of leaning back on itself. And then I've tied it up to the base of that garden arch, and then I've got the other panel suspended at the back just to counterweight it. So yeah, it's pretty precarious, but at least it allows me to opens up the opportunity to get a clear shot at the back, and also gives me a clear shot at this back as well and the front. Yeah, so without obscuring the sides with anything, so I'm pretty happy with that. So all in all, we are ready to start shooting some epoxy and get these things painted. So here we go. I'll just set up a time lapse and finish the job. Got them sprayed, but geez, it was a bit of a clusterfuck. Unfortunately, when I started, I didn't test the gun, and yeah, cheap gun from eBay, but probably because I didn't know how to actually clean it properly, a little bit of epoxy got stuck in the needle and it wasn't firing correctly, so I ended up having to use a little touch-up gun to spray everything as an emergency option, because I just couldn't get, even after cleaning the gun and I put it back, the pin was just going like that, so it was making an uneven spray pattern. It was a bit of a disaster actually, but we've managed to I managed to get a decent coverage on most of the stuff as far as epoxy's coverage is concerned. It's not you know, it's not the kind of coverage you want for a base coat, that's for sure, but the bonnet is pretty good. Yeah, so the bonnet's pretty even considering like what I was dealing with. It was, I've got some footage of it, I've only got a small amount of footage of it, but yeah, it's left a couple of splatter marks here, here, here. So yeah, like, not ideal at all. And obviously I'm going to be high filling this anyway, but I'll have to sand it all back once it fully cures. So yeah, a bit of a lesson learned. I'll have to buy a new gun for the high fill anyway. This gun, like it's not too bad. I mean, that small touch-up spray gun was fine anyway. It's made a good coverage, and that other guard's fine. You know, it's still did a pretty good job considering it's all going to be hidden anyway. But it's sealed. That's the main thing, you know. So it's not going to be rusting anymore. And that's the rear of the bonnet there. So pretty happy with how that turned out. It's just the front really, the bonnet there, where it's just splattered a few large areas, which was not ideal. But yeah, the booth performed quite well. I was stuck in here a little bit longer than I'd wanted to be with the vapor, but with the mask on, you know, I don't have a fresh air mask or anything, so I don't like to be stuck in this booth too long if I can avoid it. But, you know, once I do a bit of spraying and then I just walk out and give it a bit of a rest, only because that fan, you know, is only good for a small amount of vapor to get rid of. So then you can see the other guard's pretty good. So anyway, that's it. 3 more down. So edging closer and closer. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Once again, it's been a month. Yeah, it's just so much on that I haven't been able to pump out another one. But I'm going to get another episode out next week. I've got an exciting development that I've got to do. I've got an exciting product that I want to use for the chassis that I think everyone will like. It's it's an addition to the external coat. It's how to treat the internals of the chassis and make sure that, you know, you can seal that going into the future for rust. So that's an exciting development, and I'm looking forward to getting into that chassis and just, repairing it, dismantling it, and getting it reconditioned so that we can start to edge forward to placing the engine back on the chassis. So I'll probably balance that out, with the chassis reconditioning, and I'll start to crack open the old body filler can and have a go at the rear quarters, and just, have a go at my skills there, get some blocking, some sanding blocks, and start getting into it, because it's apparently a massive job, and as hard, if not harder, than the fabrication of this stuff. So that's it for this episode. If you haven't tuned in from the start of the series, click the subscribe button, and you'll get notified of every episode that comes out. If you haven't started from the start, go back, check it out from episode 1. It's been a fair journey and still got a long journey to go. And look forward to the next episode coming out, which is going to be a good one. So until next time, see ya.